Howdy, y'all. Welcome back to Messages from Mars, your weekly dose of mundane medicine given to you from the planets and served to you right here on the Medicinal Melange podcast. I'm Elizabeth, medical astrologer, clinical herbalist, and owner of the Medicinal Melange. And every Tuesday, I walk through the astrology so you can bring grounded, empowering energy in your life. I do the work and look at the cosmic kind of twists and turns coming up so that way you don't have to. On June 24th, the sun is conjunct Jupiter in Cancer, and the moon actually enters Cancer and squares Saturn in Aries. And so, what that is telling me is last night might have been a little rough. And if you were looking at the news reports, you know. But the sun in Cancer was squaring Neptune in Aries. Neptune is the dissolver, Aries is the warrior. This is about dissolving boundaries and rewriting them, or at least attempting and failing miserably. There's a lot of war associated with this placement. So there creates naturally a push and pull between tension and surrender. So that racing, overstimulating feeling that keeps you up at night, that's definitely what we're experiencing. But today there was a shift into this softer gear, right? The sun is conjunct Jupiter in Cancer, and that brings a wave of emotional expansion. Jupiter is going to always add more. And in Cancer, that more looks like a lot of softness and comfort, or just enough inner space to feel like you can breathe again. If you've been feeling low or emotionally heavy, I always equate it to like a wet towel over, like if you swam places as a kid, more likely than not, you've at least stuck your towel in the water at least once or twice and put it on you. And it's very heavy. When you have that heavy feeling in your body, this could feel like the tiniest window opening inside, a little light, a little extra space for breath. You also might notice some water retention or swelling within the body's vessel, especially if you're a Cancer type or tend to be sensitive toward lunar movement. If you want to catch my episode on the Cancer type after you listen to this, head over to the Medicinal Melange podcast and check out the Cancer type. I think it's like episode 4 or 5. But I deep dive into all of these Cancer type herbs, body, kind of like how things manifest on our body. The moon also enters Cancer and squares Saturn in Aries. So while the emotions have been rising, there's also structure and pressure from the body as well. So if you're undergoing any sort of medical testing today, I definitely recommend giving it a second look after this week, and maybe just once you get your testing back before you make any final decisions. June 25th, there is a new moon in Cancer, and Mercury is actually at 28 degrees Cancer, and this is why it matters. So, the new moon is going to be exact on this day, and this one's definitely going to be a little bit more tender. Cancer is ruled by the moon, so it's a lunar return, a reset for emotional safety, for these internal rhythms that kind of keep us up and keep us going. Your body basically becomes a container for these emotions, for this water energy. So tears might come out without any sort of stories behind why they actually are coming out. You might feel the need to nest and reset, and that is totally okay because Mercury sits at 28 degrees Cancer, which is a very sensitive degree that is tied to being emotionally overwhelmed or even just straight up depression. So it's not the day to take on too much. Instead, it would be really awesome if you asked a very Cancer style question of what would safety feel like inside my body right now? It seems like it could be so little of an action, but it is so profound when you take 2 seconds to ask, what does safety look like for me in this moment? And like Huxley said, Feel lightly, even though you are feeling deeply. And that's the assignment here. June 26th, Mercury enters Leo and the Sun is in Cancer, sextiling Mars in Virgo. I know that was a mouthful, but Mercury moves into Leo today. And it is a fire sign that rules the heart and the spine and the back. And Mercury is known as a nervous planet. So when you add these two together, we see increased awareness about like those little flutters we're getting in our heart. But this is also some back tension, back pressure, building at the ribs, maybe even just straight up back pain. Passion flower or skullcap is a beautiful herb. Passion flower specifically is going to help keep your chill. I make a tincture called Tranquillium. This is a wonderful herb to reach for with passion flower if that is what you're looking for. We're going to open the chest. We're going to calm the nerves. We're going to take those deeper breaths. As far as the back pain goes, I love skullcap. I put it specifically in my sauna tea. And with the skullcap herb, it works on the anxiety that lives in your muscles. So if we're talking about Mercury in Leo, this is a perfect herb to work with. Why all that shenanigans is happening? The Sun sextiles Mars, which is in Virgo right now, and this creates heat within the gut. Virgo rules the digestion, and when Mars gets involved, things tend to dry out fast. Combine that with the South Node that's been hanging out in Virgo for a hot minute, and we really get a lot of stagnation within the GI system. So we have the heat of Mars. There might be a digestive sort of fire that is working overtime or is just kind of getting burnt out because there's so little stimulation and all this stagnation is accumulating. So I highly recommend eating clean, slowing down, supporting your system with herbs that soothe rather than stimulate you. We really want to focus on eating things that soothe and quell that fire. June 27th, the moon is in Leo and it's conjunct Mercury. So the moon has moved into Leo fully and is now sitting next to Mercury. This can feel like your body is trying to talk to you. And the message is coming really from the heart, right? Because it's in Leo, literally coming from the heart. There's this emotional release that might show up through tension in your chest and your spine, or even in like these bold words that maybe you didn't plan on saying. So, when in doubt, pause and think, am I responding or am I reacting? Because this is the moment when your nervous system stops negotiating and says, enough, I've had it. If you caught my episode of the Medicinal Melange podcast, I specifically talked about Pluto in Scorpio in your natal chart, because that's a generational placement, squaring Pluto in Aquarius, which is what's going on in the transits right now. This is really important because the talks we're having inside are now coming out. I cannot tell you how many clients I meet with every week that are like, I just can't take it anymore. And it's like, yeah, that's a generational thing. Welcome. Don't override it. Listen. June 28th, the moon is in Leo and it's squaring Chiron in Aries. Chiron in Aries is like the fear of just going for it, just doing the damn thing. And so this aspect puts you in like a vulnerable position because the moon in Leo wants to be seen and loved without conditions. In fact, it would love that you love and pay attention to it no matter what. But Chiron in Aries brings up some old shit and old stories around like survival and not being allowed to need anybody. And I'm independent, but like hyper independence. We've all been that person and met that person. So if you find yourself feeling ashamed for asking for help or needing that extra comfort, or maybe you feel angry that you feel so raw, this is a pause point because there's nothing wrong with that. This is just the wound talking. Let the self-kindness be your nervous system's medicine today. Take 2 seconds to honor your needs and know that it's going to help you get to the next step. Nothing wrong with that. This is especially true if you have your Chiron in Aries. June 29th, the moon in Virgo forms a yod with Jupiter in Cancer and Saturn and Neptune in Aries. This is the finger of fate kind of day. The moon in Virgo forms a yod, which is a powerful, like, alignment, high pressure alignment. But it forms it with Jupiter in Cancer and then Saturn and Neptune in Aries. And so this creates almost like a release valve on your Instapot, you'll release it, like, psh. Yes, I understand, and I'm old enough to know what pressure cookers were before the Instapot, but I just figure most of you guys know Instapot, right? But this is the release valve because, again, remember Saturn and Neptune. Saturn is in Aries, and it's like going to war to build things, to create new structure, new boundaries, keeping it rigid. And Neptune's like, but what if we dissolve it all? What if there are no boundaries? What if we erase this line and let's think of a new boundary? And honestly, look, we're all living through it, so we know it's bullshit. But it is about expansion in some way because you have Jupiter in Cancer. And it's also about this physical sensitivity and this sensitivity about what it is to be of service to your community, what it is to be of service to your family, to your neighborhood, to your anybody in your house, right? So there's this need to move through the boundaries and through the limitations you're still holding on to in Aries territory. This could manifest as inflammation in your head, this thought of like, holy shit, I have this survival mode that I need to kick in. Maybe you start prepping. I don't know. But this really will feel like some sort of flare up. It can also manifest in the GI because this yod is in Virgo. So maybe it's an autoimmune flare up, inflammation in the GI. Maybe it's your allergies come in way too hot and heavy. So the nervous system, the digestive system, the brain, they're all talking and they are not whispering at all. Not at all. But then later in the day, the moon aligns with the south node, which can make dinner definitely feel heavier than it is. And so we want to eat light from a body perspective, but also keep it light from an emotional perspective. Allow your space and your heart and your mind and your body time to run through the system of processing information on this day. Also, Mercury is still square Pluto. So if you are going to go through any medical things that you like have to do, just make sure that people are dotting their I's, crossing their T's, picking the right limb to operate on, all of that stuff. It's not let's force your hand kind of moment. If you can wait on anything, definitely do that. June 30th, the moon is going to be in Virgo and Mercury is still squaring Pluto. So we start the week next week with a little bit of refinement for sure. It's not firework energy. It's just kind of like we're tightening the screws. We have this project and we're not trying to blow it up. We're just trying to tighten the screws and make sure everything's all sealed, ready to go. So adjust the language, slow down. If you need to brew a cup of tea to get through it before you reply to that email, pop off, do you? Because Mercury is still facing off with Pluto. So it's asking you to speak clearly and choose your words with absolute care. Don't say things that you don't mean on this day. Also, this allows your nervous system to recalibrate. Not in huge ways, but in small adjustments by holding on to your power of words, and getting your point across without them being big firework energy. If today's episode stirred something in you, maybe I talked about a body symptom that you're like, oh my God, that makes so much sense. Or your emotions felt a little bit more seen, or maybe you're just ready to go deeper within your own chart and figure out how to live in alignment with your birth chart. Here's how we can work together. I offer virtual astrology readings. I offer virtual medical astrology readings. Obviously, that's what I'm most known for, but I can do it all. Sometimes they're one-time lessons. Sometimes they're quarterly subscriptions where we meet every 3 months to talk about your love life, your health, your bank account for the next 3 months. And if you are craving that deeper transformation, my year-long mentorship, The Sun, is where we do the real work. Every month, we explore a different house in your chart through live sessions, breath work, QHHT sessions, tarot, journaling, herbal recommendation. This is intimate, personalized and built to help you integrate astrology into the way you live and heal and lead your day-to-day life. You can learn more and book your next step at themedicinalmelange.com. Just click on astrology readings or the sun at the very top to find what's right for you. All right, y'all, be easy. I will see you next week.